You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Herron, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Herron here, your host, back with another episode. Exciting news. This podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, who have been telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com, and then definitely follow them on Instagram for all the information that you need, because I'm sure that's where you follow us as well, at oklahomahof. Let's get into today's episode.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Herron here, your host, back with another episode. I have Camille Herron. Did I say that right? Herron? Yeah, okay. Because my last name's Hearn, H-E-A-R-N-E, and people spell it wrong all the time. And I'm actually from the UK as well, so we see, accents and all that stuff. But thanks for joining me today. I know we've been trying to do this, and sadly, a race schedule for you probably this year has been completely turned upside down.
I feel like I've adapted to races getting canceled. So, but yeah, I mean, I still have a love for running, and I'm still getting out and running twice a day. So, this is what I do.
Yeah. So you're in Colorado right now, is that right?
Yeah, we're in Alamosa, Colorado now. So, but I'm a born and bred Oklahoman.
Yeah. So, I mean, people listening that don't do running or ultra running probably have no idea who you are. Wikipedia is great, and I'm sure it's all true. I'm just going to list a few, and then we can dive into the history, growing up in town and stuff. But 3-time world champion, 5 world records. Fastest, this was my favorite, by the way, Guinness World Record for the fastest marathon, dressed as a superhero. You're born on Christmas Day as well.
Yeah,
that's
born
pretty special. But yeah, I mean, you obviously, your dad played at OSU, has played basketball at OSU, and just there's so many accolades, and I will get into them, but those are just a few. I mean, to have 5 world records is pretty impressive. So. And having a little bit of ultra running experience myself, I guess early this year, I now have huge appreciation for everything that you guys do. I mean, it's mental. So
it is mental.
Let's go right to the start. Right all the way back. So you were born in Norman, is that right?
Yeah. Born in. My parents are from Norman. I was born in Norman, and 2 of my other siblings were born there. So yeah, I call that kind of my hometown.
Yeah, and grew up, went to high school there, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I grew up in a bunch of small towns around Oklahoma. So my dad was a school superintendent. And I've lived in Duncan and Guthrie and Mangum, and then when my dad retired, we moved up to Oklahoma City, and I ended up graduating from Westmore.
Okay.
So yeah. So I kind of know the whole state, and I've lived a lot of places. I went to college up in University of Tulsa in Tulsa. So so yeah, I feel like I'm a pure Oklahoman. That's where I'm.
You're much more Oklahoman than I am, but I've been here almost 10 years. But you've got to see, growing up in the country to coming to the, coming to the city and all the rest of it. That's a pretty good upbringing, growing up and seeing all these different communities and towns and stuff. How early on does the love of running come in?
Yeah, so I would say like my earliest memories of running was when we lived up in Guthrie. So we lived out in the country when we lived up in Guthrie, and I got to give credit to my parents for living out in the country like we did, because we had all these wheat fields around our house. And you could see I-35, from across the fields. And so when I was, I think I was maybe 7 or 8. They had the Olympic Festival in Oklahoma. And so my dad signed up to carry the torch across Oklahoma. And he signed up, I think it was like a mile stretch that was along I-35 near our house. And I remember my sister and I got our first pair of running shoes, and we got to run with our dad as he carried the torch.
Yeah.
And so Yeah, so that was like my first like memory of, like organized running. But yeah, I mean, we grew up running around the wheat fields by our house and chasing the wildlife. And I remember PE when I was in elementary school. We had to go run like a mile around the field when I was maybe like second grade or so. And I mean, I could keep running. Like I thought I was so shocked, like other people would start walking and I could just keep going. And so, and I, at that age, I didn't really know that, I had this endurance, this natural talent.
Yeah.
But I grew up as a basketball player. I wanted to be like my dad, and my dad and my grandpa played at Oklahoma State for Henry Iva. So they were my inspiration. And yeah, I mean, I'm built like my dad. I'm very tall and lean, and got long arms and legs. And I was a basketball player, and so I developed my fitness through basketball and just growing up being an athlete playing sports. So
yeah. So then when you get to high school, you're already competitive. Is that like your first competitive runnings when you get into the kind of high school stuff?
Yeah, so I like I mentioned, elementary school, we had to do like the presidential physical fitness mile. And then when I got to junior high, I was playing basketball pretty seriously, and we had to go out for track for off-season conditioning. Mm-hmm. And literally from the first day, I mean, we were having to run, a mile or two around our junior high, and I could just outlast everybody. I could just keep running. And so it's pretty obvious from the first day. I mean, I was a point guard on the basketball team. So who ran with the basketball, did most of the running and set up plays. And I mean, I got, my endurance, just from basketball. So when we went out for track, I mean, I just felt like like when I ran, I mean, it just felt like, okay, this feels like what I'm supposed to do. So,
yeah. And then, so you won, is it three state championships in high school?
Yeah. So I eventually dropped the basketball when I got to high school. I mean, it was just, I went out for cross country during the 8th grade before I went out for basketball that year. And I mean, that's what made me fall in love with running, was just running over the natural terrain. It reminded me, like, as a kid growing up in Guthrie, running around the wheat fields. And so, yeah, I mean, I just fell in love with running, just from cross country. And so when I went to high school down in Duncan, I won 3 state titles. My freshman year, won state in the 4x800 relay, and then won the mile and the 2 mile as a sophomore. And then we moved up to the city and went to Westmore, and I had some injuries my last 2 years of high school, and so I grew 9 inches when I was in high school.
Yeah, that makes sense that you would get injured by running a lot, right? Any exercise you're going to get injured doing growing that much.
Yeah. So I joked that I probably gave up the basketball a little bit too soon because I got my height when I was in high school, and I mean, I can still pick up a basketball and like, well, they play, I'm like a supersized version of what I was, but yeah, I had to grow into my body, and so I went through a transition period my last 2 years of high school, just trying to grow into my body and having to go through a lot of injuries. But yeah, I came back my senior year and I made all-state in cross country. And so, yeah, after that, started getting recruited to go run at the University of Tulsa. So that's when they kind of came, they had their eye on you, and that's when it was, okay, I'm going to go to school and be a collegiate athlete. Yeah. So I had my comeback in my senior year, and one of the Tulsa coaches saw me run at, I think it was like an all-star meet that we had with Arkansas, and I finished second at that. So yeah, that was what got me started to get recruited by colleges. So
yeah. And was there a lot, was it an easy choice to go to Tulsa, or was there a hard decision over something else?
I felt pretty good about Tulsa. I mean, I gotta give credit to my parents. Really instilled the value of education in me. So I was very studious in high school, and so I ended up getting academic and athletic scholarships to go to Tulsa. So for me, it felt like the best fit in terms of academics and athletics. And the crazy thing is the coaches that recruited me at Tulsa ended up leaving and went to University of Kansas right before my freshman year. So I ended up getting a new coach, and so my college career was very short lived. I continued to have a bunch of injuries my freshman year, and I eventually ended up getting a medical hardship at Tulsa. So I became a recreational runner for a couple years. So.
Yeah. That must have been really tough. I mean, like, you growing up, like you've got this natural ability to run, from a kid that you just love doing. It comes easy to you. You start competing, you're successful, and then you go through, your growth spurt in high school. You've got to kind of sit it out. You get injured, and then, you're ready to, your senior year, you have a good year, and you're like, great, I'm going to university now. This is like the rest of my life. And then another hurdle happens, and you've got to like become a recreational runner again. That's an up and down. Yeah. That's an up and down time for sure.
Yeah. It was a pretty difficult time in my life, and if you're reading my Wikipedia, that my family also lost our home to the May 3rd, 99 tornado. Mm-hmm. So not only was I going through all these injuries and all this growth and change, but my family lost their home to the tornado. So. So yeah, I mean, I feel like my life could be a movie. Like, right. It just does. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things I've had to overcome, and everybody thinks, being an athlete that it's a straight line to the top. But I mean, there's so many bumps along the road so many things I've had to overcome to get to where I am. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm talking about a really difficult time in my life that, running just wasn't meant to be. And, but yeah, I ended up meeting my husband, after my freshman year. And so, he was the one that kind of got me back inspired and eventually started coaching me. And, so yeah, Connor's the one that you've been communicating with, trying to get me on here. Yeah. But yeah, he's a Oklahoma implant.
Just like me then.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Oh yeah. So Connor ran at the University of Oklahoma, and he was a 6-time All-American at OU. And his sister was running at OU at the time that I was running at Tulsa. So I actually knew his sister, and I knew who he was. But yeah, I happened to meet him at a jazz festival down in Norman after my freshman year. So
that's awesome. That's a really cool story. Do they? I guess does Connor and his sister, they still like competitively run, or is it solely dedicated to you?
Yeah, I wouldn't say. I think Connor's almost 10 years older than me, and so he's been done with his competitive career for, I think, like 12 years or so. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, now that we live up in Alamosa, Colorado, I mean, it's so beautiful here that he's gotten himself back running, and just trying to, for health and fitness, try to get out there and enjoy the mountain views. So.
Yeah, definitely. And so you I guess you graduate from Tulsa. Are you still recreational? Are you thinking I'm gonna try and compete again? Like, what's the mindset, when you graduate?
Yeah, so the way it happened was that Connor's from Ireland, and he got his U.S. citizenship about, I think, like 2002. Mm-hmm. So actually he had applied for citizenship around the time that 9/11 happened. And so his 9/11 happened, and his application got pushed back a couple months. And eventually he ended up getting a citizenship in 2002. And so he qualified for the Olympic marathon trials in 2004. And at that time, he had been living down in Florida, and he had quit his job and moved to Oklahoma after he met me. And he was living with my grandpa down in Norman, and taking care of my grandpa and training for the Olympic marathon trials. So I would drive down on the weekends and help him with his training. He would be running on the roads down in Norman, and I'd be driving my car. And he would be doing these like 22-mile training runs, and I'm studying my books and, then popping out and handing him bottles on his long runs. So I saw the work and the dedication that it took to train like he did. And then he went to Olympic marathon trials and finished, let's see, how did he do? I think he was like 17th or 18th, and ran 2:18 in the marathon. And so I'm at the Olympic trials with him, and I'm like, we're surrounded by like Med Keflezighi and all these like famous runners, and so I got inspired again. And that following summer, 2004, we went up to Boulder, Colorado, and we're running on the trails every day, and there's like Olympians and people training for the Olympics. And I started running a lot. And one day Connor and I went out for a run together, and I was running further than him. And he's like, well, what's going on? Like, how much are you running? And for fun, I was running about 70 miles per week.
For fun. Yeah.
So he was kind of like, that's a lot of running. Like, I'm not even like training for anything. I'm not competing, or, I'm just out running because I enjoy running. So that was kind of the turning point that he started giving me workouts, and I got back into competing as a road racer. And so my running career just pretty much took off from there. Yeah.
But so you worked at OU for a while, right? Is that during like this whole time doing the same stuff, or was this, how did that work? How does that work into everything?
Yeah. So this was actually my fifth year of college at University of Tulsa. So at that time I was really busy doing research and tutoring, and just finishing up my courses at Tulsa. So and then I went to grad school at Oregon State. And that's when I started like training to qualify for the Olympic marathon trials. And so Connor was coaching me, and got up to 100 miles per week, and ended up qualifying for the 2008 Olympic marathon trials. So my running career was, pretty much resurrected around that time. And then I ended up, I worked in research for a couple years after I graduated from grad school, and made 3 Olympic marathon trials, and got into running a lot of marathons, like being a marathon maniac is what it's called. And so I was running a lot of marathons, and everybody's like, hey, Camille, you're running on these marathons. Maybe you should try ultra running. Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm bored running 26 miles. This is easy now. Let me just try something else. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got the full spectrum as a marathoner. Did that for 10 years, and then 2015 was when I committed myself to ultra running, and my ultra career took off. So
yeah, and that's I mean, in the grand scheme of things, the ultra career is fairly recent. Like, it's not like you've always been doing it. I mean, granted, like, what is it, 5-6 years is a long time, but in the terms of your career, like, that's quite, for what you've done in the ultra world, like, that's not it's not like you're seasoned. It's not like you're in it, you've been in it since you were 16 kind of thing, right? Like, I mean, I know it's all the same running, but like running 100 miles is a lot harder than just running a marathon. And you won the Oklahoma City Marathon three times?
Yeah. So my husband and I moved back to Oklahoma in 2011, and Connor had won Oklahoma City Memorial Marathon twice, and he still holds the course record there.
Yeah.
So yeah, once we moved back to Oklahoma, like of course I have to run the OKC Memorial Marathon. So yeah, I ended up winning it and setting the course and state record back in 2012. And so yeah, I think that stood for what was it, until last year.
Until they changed the course, yeah.
Yeah, and I was at the race last year, and they gave me the mic, and I was doing a bit of commentating on TV, and so yeah, it was really, really exciting. Like, I mean, it was really cool to like actually be there on the mic and to like see it in person as my course record and state record got broken.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's sometimes when people lose their records, they're bitter about it. But like when you're a part of something, like when you're, I can think a true athlete wants people and loves to see people succeed and wants it to be, records aren't going to stand forever.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool to see. But I ran the half last year. And the last 2 years I ran the half. That was a lot of fun. So, and then I did the Mid-South, the Mid-South Gravel 50K in March this year. So that was like my first. I never run a marathon. I just did 2 halves and thought, I'm going to jump into the deep end. Why not? It was just like total mental. I mean, those roads out in Stillwater and, kind of the gravel roads and stuff. Like it was the first time I'd ever ran without listening to music.
Okay.
Which I actually like. I kind of enjoy it now because I think there was a lot of self-talk going on, which I think that's a huge part of ultra running, right? It's mostly mental.
It's mental.
Oh yeah. I think if someone would have listened to what I was saying to myself, they would have thought I was absolutely crazy. But most people thought I was crazy for running it anyway. So, like I said, your ultra career kind of kicks off, and you start, I guess traveling the world, finding, searching out for these ultra races, trail races on track. Talk me through that. What's that experience like, traveling around the world and being sponsored and becoming, being a professional athlete?
Yeah. I'm living the dream. Like this is a dream come true. Like we're talking about my transition to ultra running. I was pretty much at the point where I was going to retire from competitive running, and everybody was like, "Hey, Camille, you got to try this ultra running thing." So I'm 33. I'm in my mid 30s, and back in 2015 when I committed myself to the sport, and literally for my first race, my first 100K, I was breaking records and running the fastest times in the world, and so it was shocking. Like, what do I do? I'm a full-time professional working in bone imaging at University of Oklahoma Health Science Center, and my running career took off again, and I'm the best in the world. Yeah. And it was a lot to process. Like, it was like, what do I do now? So,
right. Because I'm sure at this point you're like, I want to have a family. I'm ready to settle down, and I want to do whatever it is and just enjoy the rest of my life after, retire and take up golfing or whatever it is and cycling or, anything. And then you not overnight, but like I said, you do a couple of races and become the best in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
I'm shocked. Like, I didn't know what to do. Like, for the first year or so after I won 2 world titles. I broke a world record. This happened like fast.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to process it. Like, what do you do? And so that the year after, I started doing all this, and I was like, well, maybe I should get an agent. Maybe I need to, become a professional again. Sure. So that first year was actually really, really hard for me, trying to transition, from a full-time professional by day to, embracing becoming a professional athlete in my mid-30s. And so eventually I got everything sorted out where I got an agent. I ended up getting sponsors with Nike and a bunch of others. But yeah, it was overwhelming for me. Like that first year was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. Like, if you wrote, a book of my life, I mean, it's like I had turned a page and started like a new chapter. And so yeah, I mean, I definitely like appreciate like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe this happened. And so yeah, every time I go, I'm going to races around the world, and I mean, it's a dream come true, and I can really appreciate that, and that I have this amazing ability, and trying to make the most of it. So
right, like what was when that first year, it's I assume just like, I mean, you're still running, but it's still like trial and error, right? Because it's a completely different, I guess, form, and you're now running ultras and all the rest of it. And you got people coming at you left and right. I'm sure the emails are blowing up. People contact you and on the phone and interviews and all this crazy stuff from the industry, and you got to handle that as well. What, I guess, when you kind of felt settled and comfortable at, I'm going to do this, I'm a professional now, what were like the first couple of races that, because when you win, and when you're an athlete and you win the first time and it's like, oh, I won. Oh, okay. Like there's no pressure, right? You come into it fresh. You kind of, just like, oh, I don't expect to do well, right? And me being a golfer, when I don't expect to play well, I usually go and play well because there's nothing, it's no pressure. What was that first win like when you really had pressure and people were really expected, they were like, oh, Camille's here, like she's going to win kind of thing. Like, what was that like?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I embrace it. Like, I love the pressure. Like, I mean, I grew up as a basketball player, and my dad was a really good free throw shooter. Mm-hmm. And so he taught me from a really young age that free throws win championships. And so I learned how to be cool under pressure and to be able to toe the line and like snap your fingers and the gun goes off. And I mean, I embrace that. And I think that's what makes me the athlete that I am, is that I'm a championship performer, and I've learned how to, from a young age, I learned how to stay cool under pressure. Mm-hmm. So I really embrace that. Like I really enjoy when I toe the line with the best competition in the world, or, going for a world record. And so yeah, once my 2016 was a pretty tough year for me, because I was trying to sort out my professional day life with, becoming a professional athlete. So 2017 was kind of like my comeback year of, okay, I'm going to break out onto the world and, just traveling the world and racing some of the best people in the world, whether it's, on trails or on road. And yeah, I mean, I had a really good year in 2017 and ended up going to South Africa, won the Comrades Marathon, beat the best people in the world there. And so yeah, I mean, I really, really enjoy the pressure and racing the best people.
Yeah. What has been some of the best trips that you've been on? I know you've been to New Zealand. I'm sure you've been to amazing other places too, especially when you're running trails, right? Like you can't just run trails in Oklahoma because it's kind of boring. But if you're in New Zealand, I mean, it's pretty special. Are there any that really stand out?
Yeah. 2017, I went to New Zealand for the first time and ran the Tarawera 102K on the trails over there. So I mean that race happens where they shot Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I had this mental vision of Lord of the Rings and going on this journey through the trees and over hills and all this. So I mean. The trail running is spectacular. Like, I mean, I've had moments during the races where I'm just so moved by what I'm seeing, and it's I'm coming from a road racing background, where it's like pretty monotonous scenery to race in New Zealand on trails, and I wish I had my camera. Sometimes I could like stop and take pictures of what I'm seeing.
Right.
I mean, for me, it's really fun to be a versatile athlete and, to be able to go to New Zealand and race on trails, or go to South Africa and be running across the African savannah on road. And I mean, it's so cool, like where my legs can take me, to these cool places, whether I'm on road or on trail and getting to meet the people and embrace the culture. I mean, I feel like so blessed that I can do this because it was such a pleasant surprise for me, to even try ultra running in the first place. And now it just takes me all over the world. So it's really cool.
Yeah, it's like when you look back to see like the little avenues and the ways that you get to where you're at, right? And you think, if I didn't do this, or if, I didn't meet this person, then I would never have got into this. And this whole like spider web of things of how you end up where you are. It's pretty insane to look at, especially with like moving around and, okay, I met this person and then dad's carrying the torch and I get my shoes and like all this stuff that goes back. Like it's amazing when you map things out to see where you're at now. And I'm sure it'll be really cool, in the future, just kind of looking back on the next, competitive years and stuff. What, so, I mean, you have 5 world records. For people listening, what exactly are those world records that you have?
Yeah. So we talked about my Guinness World Record. I used to forget that one because it's not an ultra record, sure. But that's my 5th record that I have. So I have 4 ultra world records, which are 50 miles, 12 hours, 100 miles, and 24 hours. So I pretty much, I have almost every distance except the 100K between 50 miles and 24 hours so far. And there's world records that go up to 1,000 miles. So yeah. I'm hoping. I know it's pretty crazy. So my goal for the future is to get into the multi-day races, going for 48 hours, 100K, 6 days, and then eventually 1,000 miles. So my goal is to get like pretty much every ultra world record that I can. So.
Yeah. Well, that's people listening, they're like, I'm going to run a marathon one day, or I'm going to do a half, or even, I'm going to get off the couch and I'm going to do a 5K. And it's amazing. Like I grew up playing golf. Like we don't run, and I ran my first like half marathon. I was like, whoa, I did that. And then, you do it again. And it's amazing how your body adapts and grows. And like you said earlier, it's a lot of mental stuff as well. And then you get into, running 50K and 100K, and sometimes it's around a 1 mile track, right? And sometimes it's through trails. It's definitely, I mean, it's an amazing sport to just be around. And I know when I did my race, it was like, I did it in 6 hours and 20 minutes, I think, and for 50K. And I was the reason I signed up is because I listened to too many David Goggins podcasts. I was like, I can do anything. So I did that. But, and I look at the guy who won it that day, who finished in like 3 hours, I think he did it in.
Wow.
Just like, what? Like, I'm just like dying going up and down these hills on gravel. And like, this guy's, but, I mean, impressive stuff for sure. So with these world record stuff, there's a lot of like crazy races out there that some people might know. Like the Moab one is a big one, isn't it? It's at the 240 miles through the desert. And like, have you tried or done any of that like really nuts stuff yet?
I mean, I definitely want to do more trail racing because, the way I planned out my running career was, coming from the marathon, that it made more sense for me to go after all the speed records, like on the road and on the track and all that kind of stuff. So now that I've achieved, all those world records, I feel like I'm going to go for all the trail stuff now. Western States, UTMB, do the 200 mile stuff, the Moab 240. I think there's a whole series of them that you can do. I mean, I figure, I have the talent that I might as well just cross every single distance and surface that I can. I mean, I'm 38 now, and women ultra runners are going into their 50s, competing at a high level. So I mean, the next 10 to 15 years of my running career are going to be pretty darn exciting.
Oh yeah. Well, the 24-hour race that you have, the world record, what was the mile? Was it just purely on miles, or was it a time?
Yeah, I mean, it's how far you can go in 24 hours.
Gotcha.
And so it was on a 1,500 meter loop that we had to do for 24 hours. And so, yeah, I covered 167.8 miles in 24 hours.
Yeah. Are you taking, when you run, are you taking, like, do you have a sit down break for a little bit? I mean, you must stop, right? And have some snacks. You're not running the whole 24 hours, right?
Yeah. So I think my average pace for that was 8:34 per mile. But I know it's crazy for 24 hours. But yeah, my average moving pace was 8:14 per mile.
Yeah.
So I you know, like you mentioned, I mean, I have to stop sometimes. I have to go to the restroom. I have to eat food. I have to lay down.
Yeah.
I mean, I took 2 power naps during the race, like 5 to 10 minute power naps. So I definitely stopped just because, you know, I'm a normal human too.
Right.
Like
yeah. I mean, that's a huge team effort as well, right? Like, you have a huge team there, or, you know, you have a couple of guys that help you, and you know, Connor, I'm sure, was there, and just nutrition and just all the stuff that goes into that for 24 hours.
Yeah. So I mean, Connor's usually my one-man crew, but we had a whole team there supporting us as part of Team USA, and so people are cheering me on the course, and then when I had to stop, I mean, I had GI issues. You know, I had to deal with my gut wasn't happy for a good portion of the race, so we had a medical team there, you know, trying to get my gut to calm down. So I mean, when you run that far, I mean, it's next to impossible to have a perfect race.
Yeah.
Like, you go through so much, and you have to push through all these challenges. And so to set a world record is not a perfect race in ultra running. Like, all my world records I've set, I've had to overcome and jump through hurdles to achieve what I did. And so, you know, even if I laid down for 5 or 10 minutes on a table, I got back up and I had to keep hammering the pace, you know, to keep going to set the world record. So, and not everybody can do that. Like, a lot of people, you know, if they get GI issues or get tired or fatigued, a lot of people quit. But for me to do what I do, I can't quit. I have to keep going. I have to keep pushing through all those challenges. So.
Yeah. How much time did you beat the world record by? For that one?
So I held the world record. I beat my own world record.
Oh, great.
And
That's even better.
Yeah. So now I'm at the point where I'm trying to improve my own world record. So I beat my 24-hour record by 5 miles.
Yeah. Which over 24 hours is, like, I mean, when you break it down, it's really nothing, right? But 5 miles at the end of it, that's quite a lot. That's awesome.
It's quite a bit. Yeah.
So, you know, you got, and you just mentioned it, all the up and downs that you go through, like, all these experiences, life experiences that you've had from doing this. You know, naturally you want to talk to people, you want to tell people about it. People are asking you questions about it. So naturally you become a speaker outside of it, right? You know, you naturally become a coach, regardless if you want to or not. It's more of a choice of, okay, shall I really do public speaking and become a coach? I mean, just doing answering questions that people would ask you anyway. You're just doing it now on a stage. What was that like? And what's that like, kind of transitioning and still doing stuff, running and talking as well?
Yeah. So I was a research professional at University of Oklahoma Health Science Center, and so that's what I went to grad school for. That's what I thought I would be doing for the rest of my life. So when my ultra career took off, I mean, I was at a crossroad. Like, what do I do now? I have this amazing talent, but I still have a day job. So I spent the past couple of years trying to transition. I went to part-time hours when my ultra career took off. And so I was working more like part-time hours at OU. And then my running career just became so big that last year I finally quit my job. well, I shouldn't say I quit my job. I retired from my job.
Yeah.
So I finally was able to move out of my profession and to embrace, being an ultra runner, being a coach, being an ambassador for the sport, traveling the world, speaking at events, and so yeah. I mean, it took a whole. My husband's signaling to me. He's talking about my. So last year I was in a car accident.
Yeah, I saw the notes on that. Like the early last year, right? January, something like that.
Yeah. So I was actually driving to my day job at OU, and just out of nowhere, a car came from a side street and was trying to cross over Lincoln in Oklahoma City. I'm just driving along, like on the main road, just out of nowhere, this car just tried to cross, and she hit me. And I didn't see her until she basically impacted me. And so that was kind of the turning point for me, to be like, it almost felt like a sign from above that, okay, this is where it stops.
Right.
Like, you're supposed, this is where it ends. So last year while recovering from my car accident, was when I finally decided that, hey, I got to commit myself to my running career. And so yeah, we bought our house up in Alamosa, Colorado, and, I live at high altitude. I'm close to the mountains. And I got to give credit to Connor for helping me, to be my support system, to be able to help me with my professional running career and the coaching and all that. So we're kind of more of a team, managing everything. So
yeah, that's great. And I know, like, for people that, I followed you on social media and seen like the beautiful scenery that you're running around in. I mean, it's pretty awesome. And from the sound of it, Connor's the one taking the pictures. For everyone listening, can go to Run Camille on Instagram and check those out. It's really cool. It's definitely beats Oklahoma in that kind of sense of scenery, for sure.
Yeah.
And was it right that you ran a race 2 weeks after the crash as well?
Yeah. So I was committed to going back to New Zealand less than 2 weeks after my car accident. And so I had all this neck and back pain from my car accident, and I wasn't sure, emotionally, physically, if I could go and do the race.
Yeah.
But I felt like once I got back running, and I felt like the running was helping me to recover physically and emotionally. And I felt like I needed to go to New Zealand just to, help me get away and, to continue doing what I'm born to do. So I went to New Zealand and ended up crushing the course record, almost won the race outright. I was beating all the men in the race. And so I got really, 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 really close to almost winning the race outright and beating all the men. And so it was pretty darn exciting to be able to go back over and to do that so close to my car accident. But yeah, after I got back from that race, I took a break from my job for a couple months, and then eventually realized that, hey, I feel like I'm supposed to, continue on with my running career. So once I made that decision to give up my job, I felt like a sense of relief that I was making the right decision for me, and so yeah, I mean, my running career has just really taken off the past 8 months or so.
After you go through all that stuff, there's so much mentally strong, right? There's so many more things that you think you can do, regardless if it's sports or not. You're like, I've just endured, running for 24 hours or for 6 hours or whatever it is. Like, I think it's great. And that's the one thing that kind of got me turned onto, just endurance running or endurance cycling. Like, when I did that Mid-South race, I actually recently won an entry into next year's race, and they asked, they asked, do I want to pick to do the run or do I want to do the bike? So I chose to do the bike. So next year I'm going to hopefully, so I'm going to cycle 100 miles. But then that's now my goal this year now is training for the cycling. So I've kind of jumped onto the bike instead of running, which is I actually much prefer that. But so that's kind of, but just the endurance stuff and cycling and just sort of running, like everyone I think needs to go through something like that. Because it makes you better.
Oh, for sure. It's fun. Yeah, I actually, I'm not a cyclist at all, but I got a cruiser bike just over a month ago. So it's a pretty cool feeling to get on a bike again, like, because I haven't done that since I was like a teenager. So I feel like everybody should have a bike.
Oh yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, I'm gonna finish with just a little. I saw this thing on Netflix the other day. I watched it and it's mental. The Barkley marathons. Are you ever gonna try one of those? Yeah. Would you ever do that?
Oh yeah. I'd love to do it. I think right now, like everybody's like, Camille, don't do it. It looks awful. Like it looks so brutal. But yeah, I mean, if any woman could do it, I probably have the talent. At least as far as running ability. Now I might have to learn how to do the navigation and
taking the pages out of the books and all the stuff that they ask you to do. That stuff's that's cruel. Yeah. Running's hard enough.
I laugh because I'm the type of person that I don't overthink things. I just kind of go with the flow, and I don't get stressed about things very easily. Like I'm pretty chill, so I would probably like accidentally win Barclays or something.
I'd love that. That would be awesome. When you do, I'm just gonna clip that piece and just post it out there and be like, look, I mean, this is it's written on the wall. It's told she was gonna do it. But no.
It would be fun. I mean, to become it, whether I can become the first woman or someone else. I mean, it will be a thrill. So those are the kind of things that I live for as an athlete, is to be able to do the things that people didn't think were possible, or really transcend the sport. So.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time. Especially, recording on, today and finally we got to do this, and thankfully over Zoom we can do this as well. But it's been an absolute pleasure to share the stories, and
Thank you.
I'll post all your links to social media and website down below so people can click and follow you and send questions or whatever it is that they need. With all this stuff going on right now, do you know what your next event is? Do you know where you're speaking next? Like what's kind of the rest of this year? Do you know?
Well, I feel like every other day something's getting canceled. So at this point, I'm just kind of going with the flow. And I did commit to something pretty big. But I don't want to announce it and jinx myself.
Just in case, yeah, that's totally understandable. Well, awesome. It's been an absolute pleasure to share your story, and I'm excited to now follow on and hopefully see you, be the first woman to win that Barkley race. Be amazing.
There you go.
Awesome. For everyone listening, I'll post all the links below, and we will catch you next episode. Cheers.
This podcast was presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, who've been telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com and definitely on Instagram at oklahomahof. Catch you next episode. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.